right. Good morning, St. Kitts and Nevis. A happy new year to everyone. Well, I was told this morning it's not happy new year, but have a blessed new year, everyone in St. Kitts and Nevis, because the new year has already started. So, yes. But nevertheless, you're here on Inside the News. I'm German Abel sitting in today. We will continue with the program, but first we have to acknowledge our partners.
Financial Services, we're here for you to help you make your dreams come true. Whether your needs are big or small, we'll support you with them all. TDC Financial Services, we are strong. TDC Financial Services, this is where you belong.
TDC Financial Services, where money is made easy.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News. I'm German Abel sitting in today. Yes. Again, all the best for 2024, everyone. I know it's been a while since we had the program. Yes, we were celebrating Christmas and the season, and I trust everyone had a blessed Christmas carnival, and we all enjoyed it, but some of us worked as per usual. Yes, Sharon, we worked. Yes, but nevertheless, we're back with the program. It's the second Saturday in January. It's a bright and busy day here in downtown Bastille. I think there were one or two ships in today in the port, so it's still busy in downtown Bastille. But nevertheless, we're here on Inside the News, and we're going to jump right into the program today. So because it's the first program for the year, we want to take a quick reflection in terms of what were the major discussions and stories that impacted St. Kitts and Nevis for 2023. We had so many interesting stories and so forth for the year, but we want to discuss some of the major ones. And here when I'm sitting in the hot seat, we try to go beyond the discussion of the politics, because we discuss politics every day, and that's not going to help us. What are your stories? We try to find solutions and just have that public discourse over these issues. But nevertheless, I have with me my good colleague, Jamiela McPhail from Freedom FM. She's no stranger to many of us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We hear her every day, particularly on the radio. So she's joining me now to discuss some of these major issues that impacted us in 2023. Ms. McPhail, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Jermaine, and good morning to the listening audience. I'm happy to be here this morning to discuss all the major happenings of 2023. We do know that a lot happened.
Indeed, a lot did indeed happen, and some of what happened last year still spilling into 2024. So, I just want to get from you. But before, I must say, I may be joined also by someone from WINN FM's newsroom. Miss Yolanda Wicks. She may join us. You know, she's dealing with some stuff. So, yes. So, but nevertheless, we're going to go straight into the program. So, Jamie, I know you've been in the thick of it in terms of what has been happening in terms of news and all of that. So, from your perspective, what are some of the big issues that you saw for 2023?
Locally or
Well, let us start locally first.
okay. So one of the big issues we saw in 2023 was the migrant issue. We dealt with that right here in St. Kitts and Nevis, where we saw boats coming in to the Federation. We also heard a lot about the Federation's CBI program. Good governance was also on the top of the agenda for, the politicians. So those are some of the stories that really stood out. The crime issue, that was a major topic. I think that was the most major issue for 2023 in terms of homicides and gun-related crimes here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
As you talk about the migrant situation, right? I don't necessarily believe a lot of people completely understand uh, how this situation impacted us here in St. Kitts and Nevis and across the region. But I know, for example, we may say, oh, the migrant situation, they were coming to St. Kitts and Nevis. But from your reporting, what was the major issue behind this particular issue of the migrants that we saw coming to St. Kitts and Nevis?
Okay, so we saw migrants coming through St. Kitts and Nevis from Haiti. We know that Haiti is going through or continues to go through as a heightened level of turmoil at this point in time. So we did see boatloads of people coming from Haiti. We also saw a group coming from Cameroon, and that one for me was really interesting because that one was a complex issue. We know that some persons lost their lives in on that voyage. And there was a lot of talk about, why, whether or not they should be allowed to stay here, whether or not they can go back to Antigua, where they were coming from, international laws. We did also see a lawyer in the person of Mr. Craig Tuckett filing for asylum for a group of Haitian nationals. So it's a complex issue, as I mentioned. I don't think those issues were properly resolved. We know that two men we know that the migrants were being held at a particular location, and two of them were actually went missing. We never found out what actually happened to those two individuals. So I think we still have some more work to do as it relates to that issue, and really dealing with it. I think we need to deal with this on a regional level because it's clear that we can't do it on our own.
And you're correct on that because, and I keep telling people this, the migrants, when they leave Haiti, they're not necessarily heading down to St. Kitts and Nevis, right? They're not necessarily heading down to St. Kitts and Nevis, but rather they're going to places like Dominica because, my contacts in Dominica told me that, hey, there's some sort of arrangement in terms of them coming down to undertake work or whatever it is in terms of jobs and so forth. But oftentimes they take the longer route through because of quote unquote, as people would have said, as it would have been described by public officials and law enforcement agencies in St. Kitts and Nevis, is that it is human smuggling, right? So instead of them using the channel of going directly to Dominica, they're coming through the longer route. So oftentimes they may end up they may end up with engine troubles, or they may end up with just issues with the boats because of the rough seas or whatever it is. So St. Kitts and Nevis oftentimes will not be the final destination. right? Maybe Puerto Rico, Dominica, wherever it is. And we saw that specifically with the Cameroonians. They were heading to the U.S. territory because they wanted to head up there, as part of their whole push, for a better life. But you're correct. I mean, we've heard this coming out of the CARICOM meeting last year. That as part of the free movement and the whole thrust that they will be doing heading into March's deadline, is that Haiti will not be included because of the turmoil and the people leaving. But what more you think specifically we can do in terms of assisting Haiti to deal with this issue?
Jermaine, that's a loaded question. I have no idea. The situation in Haiti has been going on for so long. There is economic turmoil, there is political instability. The gangs have really taken over. We still have to look at some cultural norms within the country, because that countries, even though they have a sense of instability there, they may not want anyone to come in and it be viewed as an invasion. It's a complex issue. And I think as a region, when we look at CARICOM, CARICOM does not have the capacity to deal with this issue on their own. We need to look for international assistance. I think a lot of times we have all of these high-level meetings and people go, and you talk a lot and you try to feel important, like you're doing something. But my thing is, what really comes out of these meetings? What do we actually do other than talk and try to come up with solutions? Implementation is a big thing, and we're not seeing any real efforts to change what is happening in Haiti. I don't know what can be done at this point in time. I know the region is asking for assistance from the outside, but then when you look at what's happening throughout the world, I don't know if Haiti will be a priority, especially at this point in time.
And you're correct, but similarly, in that same vein, because I asked the IMF this question, but I did not directly get a response just yet. But it is going to have some sort of economic impact on the region. And we heard time and time again last year from both the Prime Minister and also the Premier of Nevis that St. Kitts and Nevis is not necessarily in a position to wholeheartedly accept many of those migrants. We may cry out and say, hey, they're needed here. We can accept them. But at the same time, do we have the capacity in order to sustain them over a long period? Because I think it was about $30,000 to probably $50,000 or 90,000, somewhere around that ball figure there. We heard in terms of how much was spent to maintain the Cameroonian migrants, and that specifically came out from the budget of the national security, more specifically from the police force in terms of what they can do. But I just want to jump quickly to the issue of crime and violence, which, can take up this entire program, right? But when we look at crime and violence, do you think there's a specific way or a specific initiative that the government has not been able to implement just yet that is leading to this problem? What do you think, is the issue, the underlying issue here?
Well, the year really started out. I remember speaking to you early last year, and we were really speaking about the violence within our society. At that point in time, we had not had a homicide as yet. I don't think that at that point we were able to foresee that we would have gotten to 31 homicides here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The situation is serious. We are in the top 10. We're number 9 on the list of countries, the highest murder rate per capita, number 9. We are number 4, I think, in the region. So that speaks to the seriousness of this issue. Now, as it relates to the government and policies being put in place, I know that the government has launched the Elevate program. We don't have much information on this program other than it is a spin-off from what was known as the Peace Program, the Peace Initiative, the Alternative Lifestyle Pathway Program, which was there before. And we know that was we all know what the peace program, how a lot of people felt about the peace program. No, I think that I am hoping that the Elevate program is able to really look at the root causes of these issues. We know that crime is a complex issue. Crime is not just, oh, they're going out and they're killing each other, but there are a lot of social issues that go into, that are related to this issue. So I don't know if I don't know if we are I don't know if the general population sees this as a serious issue. I think we have become kind of hardened to homicides. We have become kind of complacent. It's like I don't want to say the norm, but people don't really take it as serious as they used to, for me, which is really, really sad for me. So I am looking forward to hearing from the government, the Ministry of National Security, the police, to find out what really are the plans for 2024 and how we can try to turn around what happened in 2023.
And you're correct there. You mentioned the Elevate program, and we were having a discussion recently with one of the representatives from the Elevate program. And what they did tell us is that the program itself has seen a decrease in terms of the number of people who were on the program. Right, that's one. Two, the Elevate program is what many people would have been calling for, in the sense that they prefer to have those people with skills. It's basically a skills training program that ensured that people were actually that people on the program have actually been able to get some level of training or some level of certification coming out of if it's a 6 months or 1 year training, that they will be able to find jobs. But they're not only doing that. When they launched when they opened the new center recently, and they had the ceremony, we learned that they'll be working with the private sector. A lot of the people who will be on be going through the training, they will be developing themselves business-wise, and they will have a mentor sort of person that they will be discussing and talking with and relaying and bouncing ideas off of. So when they're finished with the whole training, they will have the opportunity to become their own entrepreneurs, which will then also be significant for the local economy, because St. Kitts and Nevis specifically is very dependent on small businesses. That's what one official told me some time back, when I interviewed them on small businesses in St. Kitts and Nevis and its impact. And St. Kitts and Nevis has been very dependent, and the local economy is dependent on the small businesses here in the country. And I think personally that that's one of the great moves from the Elevate program, because people have been criticizing the program since its inception because not much data has been shared about it. But what more do you think we can do in terms of elevating the status of the young people in St. Kitts and Nevis? Because it seems as though, right, that they are the ones who are falling through the cracks, and they're the ones who are being seen mostly in terms of the numbers, probably 18 through 25, 26 on average, are the people who are committing crimes. Do you think, outside of the Elevate program, what do you think that we should be doing more? Should we be tackling this problem from the levels of the high schools, pushing people to
I think that's one of the ways. I really feel that's one of the areas that the peace program fell short. I think there is a need to go into the high schools, maybe even the primary schools, right? And reach some of these children who may be considered at risk or vulnerable. Because when you look at the statistics as they relate to just basically the homicide victims, we realize that some of them were really, really, really young. Now, there were also videos and, you know, we live in a small community, so we heard, stories about these young individuals. Now, my question is, how are these young people, 15, 16, 17, becoming involved in these criminal activities? There is a disconnect somewhere within their childhood. So I think that I feel strongly that we need to reach these children before they become involved in these criminal activities. So yes, the Elevate program is good, but there is a need for us to have programs within the schools to reach. And a lot of times we tend to say, oh well, we need to reach our boys, but we kind of need to reach our girls as well. We need to, I don't know, look at the guidance counseling units within the schools, identify children early, and try to form some sort of assistance, sort of safety net for these children. Maybe we need to help assist the families. Maybe it is that we need to go into the family, provide counseling for the parents, provide assistance for the parents, and to really try to cut this trend.
And that is correct. We need to tackle the issue from the bottom up, because it's one thing to earmark that these are the people who are committing the crimes and so forth, but we have to begin to study what caused them to carry out the act that they would have carried out. We have to be able to find the root, because I guess in a lot of instances, and people like to say that we are tackling the issue from how should I put it? We're putting the plaster on the sore, right? We're not necessarily dealing with the issue that is causing these symptoms. We have not determined that, and you're correct. Go to the families, have an engagement, enforce some of the laws on the books when it comes to children being out after 8 unsupervised and all of that. I mean, some of the laws might be archaic, but at least they're there on the books for us to enforce. Because, and being frank, during the Christmas season, we found a lot of children who were out and about some weird hours of the night. So it's a lot that we have to deal with when we talk about crime and violence. But I'm not sure that we're actually getting to determine the root cause of the problem. But Jamie, just stand by. We have to acknowledge our partners, the people who make this program possible, and then we'll continue with the discussion on the other side of the break.
People make the world go.
Insurance Company Limited. We care about your investment. Guarantee you peace of mind. The best team in the business. Guarantee you peace of mind. No other company will. Guarantee you peace of mind. Together we'll succeed and guarantee you peace of mind. CDC Insurance Company Limited, where you get more coverage for less.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
And we're back here on Inside the News. I'm German Abel sitting in today. We are discussing some of the big news events or big stories that made the news for 2023. It's our first edition here on Inside the News for the year. So we're just reviewing and recapping a bit of 2023. You know, it was a very, very busy news year for the people in the media. And it was also a big year for you, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and those in the diaspora. And we have with us, we're joined by Miss Jamiela McPhail. We're discussing the big stories. So, Jamie, I know you will talk about crime and violence and so forth and the migrant situation, but you also mentioned the issue of the CBI. And two things jump to mind when you mentioned that, for me at least. When we talk about the CBI program is the issues that we face in terms of the challenges when we talk about the threats from the European Union and the Americans and others. And then we saw Dominica coming on to the end of last year actually having a visa reinstituted for passport holders of that territory. And then we also had the issue of the IMF once again calling for us to save for a rainy day. Right? Let's first look at the issues impacting the CBI program in terms of the threats. Do you think that when we looked at this story last year that many of us here in St. Kitts and Nevis actually was able to digest the implications of what those threats were?
I don't think so. I don't get the impression that we really understood the ramifications behind some of these issues. No, the CBI program is a program that is a major revenue earner for St. Kitts and Nevis and other territories within the region, right? We continue to see, as you mentioned, the IMF call for governments within the region not to rely so heavily on this program. We know that here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have a number of safety net programs, and they are really funded by the CBI. So let's just start there, because people tend to understand issues when those issues have the potential to affect their pockets, right? So if it is, we start to see, which we are already seeing, less revenue derived from the CBI program, we have to understand that the government will be placed in a position where they cannot fund some of these safety net programs. That means the people who really need that extra boost will no longer be getting that extra boost. Now, when they don't have that extra boost, they don't have spending power. That affects everyone, right? So that's really a breakdown of that entire issue. Now, from time and time again, going back to, I think it was, how far, when did we see the FinCEN advisory, Jermaine? Was it 2013?
Yeah, 2013, 2014, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So for years, we have been hearing from the US government, the Canadian government, the UK government, that we really have to tighten up on the way we conduct the CBI business within the CBI program. Now, there are people who are saying, well, you know, these people don't have the right to tell us about our program because they have similar programs and they are able to maintain those programs, and it's fine. But we also have to recognize that our program is sort of dependent on them. The strength of our passports is measured by the amount of countries that we can enter visa-free. Now, if these countries decide, well, no, you have to get a visa to come to our country. That takes away from the strength of the passport, and that harms the CBI program. So it's all very interconnected, and I don't, I don't think that much has been, I don't think that we speak about it enough so that the ordinary man and woman on the road would understand, listen, this is a serious issue and it has the potential to affect everybody.
I think you just did. I don't think I could have probably explained it the way that you did. I think now a lot of people understand or would have understood the issues and ramifications of some of the decisions made when it comes to the CBI program. But you underscored a point there, which goes back to the next subtopic, which is actually the program itself and whether or not, and let's look specifically at the IMF, because as someone who, on a, you could say yearly basis for the last couple of years, and been covering the IMF and attending these meetings, right? And, in my interaction with my sources and contacts at the IMF, St. Kitts and Nevis and the OECS countries, and you underscore this point again, that we're very much dependent on the CBI program for revenues. I can remember last year in the spring meetings, which is normally held in April, they again called for us to quote unquote save for a rainy day, right? That has always been the clarion call from the IMF and the World Bank. Use this as a buffer, as a cushion in terms of us being able to save. So, and then we saw the benefits of the CBI program during the COVID-19 pandemic, when a lot of countries actually went to the IMF and these other borrowing member institutions to get funds to prop up their economies that were failing and under pressure at the time, places like Barbados and St. Lucia and them. But St. Kitts and Nevis utilized its funds from the CBI program. How can we deal with an issue like this? And you may not be the best person to address this question, right? But I remember when I asked the acting director at the time during the spring meeting, it was last year, I believe, and I asked him specifically about, we have a lot of people who are dependent and a lot of social programs that are coming out through the CBI program, right? But he said, and it was more of a caution, that one, we cannot just take people off these programs, right? But, we need to decrease the spending and the dependency for social programs coming out of the CBI programs, CBI revenues. But also we have to be cognizant that if you remove these people, it can have a ripple effect on the economy. Right.
Yes.
So it's, and again, that's what I'm saying. You might not be the best.
So then to the question, how do government officials balance both scenarios? Because, governments want to stay in office. That's why, they're there. And let's face it, a lot of these social safety net programs were campaign promises. They are there to get the electorate to vote for whoever, right? So when you start to remove people from these programs, then you run the risk of losing your popularity with the electorate. And I don't think governments want to run that risk. So it's a very ticklish issue. I know we've had this discussion before. I've posed that question to even the Prime Minister, how do you balance this? And his answer was really that, the government has to be responsible. They have to look at the people who are really in need and who need it the most, and try to, cut back on the spending as it relates to those who may not be in need.
And that's a valid point, because on average we're spending $200+ million on social programs, which is, and if we want to drive home the point of how dependent we are on the CBI program. That was the last figure, about $200+ million. Let us look at the 2022 figures that were given in 2020 in the 2023 budget. We made 500 or something million EC dollars, or let's say EC dollars, $500+ million from CBI sales, and we're using we have people who are $250 million in terms of social assistance. That's like half of what we made for the CBI program for 2022. Right. So it underscores the point that there's a need for some level of weaning people off the program, but also being responsible in terms of how we take people off. Because, again, this year, for those people who follow the world economy and economics and so forth, we have the challenges, right? The IMF, not IMF, the World Bank, in their report earlier this week, said that, listen, the world is going to see slower than expected growth for some parts of this year. Then when we interviewed the tourism minister, she raised a concern that 2 persons with COVID were actually taken off cruise ships last week rather, for treatment at the hospital. So COVID is also another threat that is there. Then we have the 2 ongoing wars, Ukraine, Israel, and Hamas. And then now, the United States and Europe and the UK are trying to deal with the issues being posed by the Houthi rebels in terms of the shipping lane in the Red Sea, I believe it is.
And the Red Sea.
Yes.
Yeah, the Red Sea.
Right, and that now can also trickle down back to the issue that we had coming out of COVID, which was a supply chain issues, inflation and food
But that
prices
is
going up.
already affecting the supply chain, right? So, and I don't think, as yesterday, I was on another program and I really said, I don't think that people understand the way in which these international problems can have a negative impact on us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We are all connected within the world, right? When there are many ships, because of what is happening, there are many ships who are taking longer routes now. So when you start to take longer routes, you know what happens? The price of shipping goes up. The time frame of shipping becomes longer, right? And that has an impact on us as a country, because we know we survive based on importation.
Yep. And that is the sad reality that we're faced with here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I mean, it's all good for us to say this does not impact us, And again, it goes back to the whole geopolitics and all of that a lot of us here in St. Kitts and Nevis and across the region, we don't follow. I mean, we as reporters and journalists, we have to keep abreast with everything that goes on, every single thing. I turned on the laptop this morning, came in here. I did not remember anything about Taiwan's elections, their closest ally, right?
Exactly.
And so forth. So we have to be able to.
And even when you look at the election, you also have to look at possible, I don't want to say conflict, but instability as it relates to Taiwan and China, because China has been very vocal about this election and the outcomes of the election. And they have basically said, listen, if you vote for this party, it's a vote for war. Yeah. As you mentioned, Taiwan is our strongest ally. So that in itself would affect us. A situation like that would have an impact on us.
Exactly. So, and this is the thing. I know you do it, and I do it from time to time when I'm on here, is we have to be able to monitor everything that happens across the world and drive it home to us. I like to use the example of when we were at the IMF in 2022, the fact that when we were interviewing the governor of ECCB and he drove the point home to myself and Andre when we were up there in DC, he drove the point home that, listen, whatever is happening internationally is going to impact us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We as journalists know, and we try to explain it, but he went a little bit further and broke it down for us, especially when the interest rates were going up. He said, listen, a lot of us, and the data is there to show that there's a high percentage of economies that are dependent on remittances, right? And if the interest rate continue to go up, the disposable income is not there for you to send money back to your family members in the Caribbean. And you also underscored this, Jamiela. If you don't get that remittance from overseas, it simply means you can't spend. If you can't spend, then you either be dependent on social programs or you struggle. Right.
But not only that, when you can't spend, you can't shop, you can't buy from the small business on the side of the road, the lady on the side of the road who is selling food. You no longer have that disposable income to decide, well, I'm not going to cook today, I'm going to buy a lunch. So she now is impacted. So it all has a ripple effect.
Indeed. And again, I don't think people actually look at these things through the larger lens, right? The macro lens that they should be looking at it through, because something happening, Russia and Ukraine fighting, that has nothing to do with me, but
that's impacted the cost of food.
Exactly.
And I mean, once it impacts the cost of food, that's a serious impact. Now, when you look at the strikes yesterday on Yemen, on the Houthis,
yeah.
That resulted in a 4% increase in oil yesterday alone. 4%. That's a big percentage. It may sound like a little, but that's a big percentage when you really think about it, right? So all of these conflicts and
And then that draws us to the next point. One of the big stories across the region was the Guyana-Venezuela issue, and the premier, and who's the opposition leader, also drew reference to this, and he chastised the Minister of Finance, who's also the Prime Minister, that he did not include contingencies, or nothing was mentioned in his budget presentation about the potential impact of the Guyana-Venezuela border issue on oil prices and what that means for St. Kitts and Nevis, because Guyana and Venezuela are two powerful oil-producing nations. That in and of itself could skyrocket the price of fuel on the world market, right? And we know that St. Kitts and Nevis, well, at least for St. Kitts, the government subsidizes a lot of what we pay in terms of electricity bills. The government also subsidizes a lot of what we do in terms of the prices for the bus, in terms of the gas prices, in terms of what they can, charge for that. So it's a whole lot of dynamics that we don't look at here in St. Kitts and Nevis when it comes to geopolitics. And it's
I really
sad.
feel that it's important for us to continue to make these connections, draw these linkages so that people understand, because, I guess people are busy. These are not really considered, bread and butter issues for the ordinary person just trying to put food on the table, right? So it is necessary for us to break it down, for us to continue to break it down and help people to understand that the world is connected. How many times do you hear when we're discussing these issues that people say, but that doesn't have anything to do with us. Let's talk about politics. In St. Kitts and Nevis, we love to talk about politics. We love to talk about what this politician had said and what that politician said. But in actuality, that's okay. But we also need to bring these questions to our leaders and have them outline what policies are in place that would help to mitigate against these possible risks. And we've heard the Prime Minister say time and time again that, when we speak about the cost of food and inflation, we've heard him say that inflation has been imported. No, I'm not completely sold on the fact that there is nothing that could be done on the ground, but that is a fact. Inflation has been imported and it continues to, inflation throughout the world continues to go up.
Yes, yes, and that is indeed true because we import a lot of our food, and that kind of segues into
We import most of our food.
I could remember COVID, covering, working during the COVID pandemic. We saw a lot of long lines at the supermarket, snaking up 4th Street, coming around, reaching till at ECCB, going all the way around, just to get into the supermarkets while the vendors were on the roadways. Sorry, it took me
Yes.
about another year before I actually was able to go into a supermarket because I just wasn't going to deal with those lines. But yeah,
Yeah.
but on that note, I know we talk about 25 by 25 a lot in 2023. We also talk about the issue of water, and those are kind of well, not kind, they're interlinked, or they're linked, and then it goes to a broader topic of climate change, which also was discussed because we had last year the hottest 2 months
Yeah.
on record, and it's been described as the hottest year,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I don't believe, and this is just my view of it, I don't believe a lot of people completely understood, or still a lot of people don't understand what climate change is, its impact on us, and what impacts it is having on us and will have on us going forward. Because we talk about, and the minister, harp on this point for much of last year. We only got about 6% of the average rainfall that we needed on average for last year. Only 60%. So we're talking about a deficit of 40%. And we saw it during the rationing period, right? And I know it kind of grieved a lot of us because one day you have the full flow of water, and the next day you're trying to figure out what time the water is going to come through the pipe or it's going to come on, right?
Or if it's gonna come.
Exactly, exactly, right.
For
And
some areas, that is the question. For some areas, the question is, I wonder if we're gonna get water this week. And that's the sad reality. I remember when I was growing up, we had standpipes, street pipes along the streets of Bastille. Have you seen any recently?
there are a few, because they, at least where I live, there are few of that
But
side.
Jeremy, you don't live in Bastille. We're
Oh,
talking
sorry,
about
sorry,
Bastille,
Bastille, my
throughout
bad.
Bastille, right? Right? But what I'm saying is the availability of water continues to decrease. And as you mentioned, that is really connected to agriculture. Whether or not we'll be able to reach the goal of 25 by 25 is dependent in a large part by the availability of water, because we continue to hear the farmers cry out that they don't have the water to produce the crops that they want to produce. Climate change, a lot of us seem to think that climate change is something that is happening over there. Climate change is not real. Climate change is a myth. But when you look at St. Kitts and Nevis, I remember a time where we had rain every single day. Now it doesn't rain. And even when it does, it's not a lot of rain. So these are things that we can identify without even having the scientists tell us. These are signs that we can see right here. I heard, I can't remember, but which minister of government during the budget debate mentioned that a hotel right here in St. Kitts lost the beach. The beach just disappeared, right? And that may sound funny, but all of these are as a result of climate change. Now, if we don't get serious about this, and I must commend our governments within the region for really highlighting these issues on international platforms and really telling, the powers, the superpowers, the people who have the money, that while we don't contribute to climate change, there is need for action to be taken because we are most vulnerable. right?
And
And
that's
we
true.
we are impacted the most. So I don't know how successful the 25 by 25 agenda will be if we don't start to see and listen, right? When we first started to talk about the 25 by 25 agenda, it sounded like something in the distant future, 25 by 25. You realize we have 11 months? It's 11 months, right? So will we get there? That is the
I
question.
think
And what needs to be in place for us to get there?
I think for me, the issue with the 25 by 25 is that we have to get buying. People have to want to make it work. It's one thing for me to throw money and throw resources behind something. But if I don't see and if I don't feel like this is going to benefit me, then I'm not necessarily going to support it. And I think and the
Exactly.
farmers are going to
Buying.
criticize me for saying this, right? But the 25 by 25 has to work. It's not, you might not necessarily see the 25 by 25 off the bat, full 25%, just like that, right? But it's incremental, it's the incremental steps, yeah, the incremental steps that will actually benefit,
Yeah.
where we see the benefits leading up to that 25 by 25 initiative. And I think for me, that is what we have to want to achieve, right? To be able to, because and this is one of the issues the Ministry of Agriculture, and I've had the privilege of interviewing both the minister and the PS, and we had them on last year, right? It is crop production and consistent crop production, because let's say water is there, right? Can we say that we're producing tomatoes consistently? Can we say we're producing watermelons consistently, and not all farmers producing these commodities, these produce, all at once? So because we're going to get a glut on the market, and then we're going to get a shortage, as the same economics, a spike and a bust, right? So that's the sort of things that the concern that the agriculture department has raised, or the ministry has raised, specifically when it comes to the 25 by 25 initiative.
I remember interviewing the PS and the minister as well, and this is one of the things I highlighted for them. Now they're speaking a lot about changes and innovation within the industry, which is good. But in order for these changes to work, you have to have buy-in from the stakeholders. And based on conversations that I've had with even some farmers, I think that sometimes there's a disconnect somewhere, in that maybe the message is not being clearly communicated. Maybe they don't understand exactly what the plan is going forward, right? And that is a serious issue when it comes to implementing anything in St. Kitts and Nevis. I think we have a serious communication problem here.
As they
And
would say.
I don't say that to be funny or anything like that. But when you think about it, there are always issues in every sector as it relates to communicating changes.
Mm-hmm.
Simple road flow changes, that's traffic flow changes. You see how those simple changes become controversial.
Yeah, and I think the thing, it's more of getting whether or not they engage stakeholders in certain changes. But we're kind of running out of time, Jamie, for the first hour. I want to get from you your take, one, on Carnival, and then what are your expectations and big stories for 2024. But let's start with Carnival. What's your take and your review of Carnival?
Okay, so we have 4 minutes. So Carnival for me was successful. We have heard from the government officials, the Carnival Committee, that we saw an increase in airlift into the country. We saw an increase in arrivals into the Federation for the period. I think on the ground, even without that press release, we could tell that St. Kitts and Nevis was filled to capacity. I think most of the events were successful. There are a few events that I think there needs to be some work put into. The Soccer Monarch is one of them. I don't know. We need to try to market that show better. I don't know. There needs to be work done with that. The parade was successful. It was huge. Getting the parade to move along, the flow to move along without the gaps, I think there is room for improvement in that as well. So for me, Carnival was successful. Of course, we always have to look to the future and try to make the shortcomings better. In terms of 2024, the CBI program is going to be a big story for 2024. We continue to ask for the numbers. Jermaine, you know this. We continue to ask to try to find out how many passports have been issued under the CBI program. We'll continue to push for that information as well as other information. And that will be a major story going forward. We do have to continue to look at the conflicts that are popping up ever so often internationally. You realize that we have more and more conflicts popping up, but we are not seeing resolutions to the conflicts that already exist. That in itself is concerning. So for me, those are the stories that we are going to really look at for 2024.
Indeed. Well, when you're having fun with these discussions, we kind of run out of time.
But I had to do that quickly.
Yeah. But you're correct, though. The CBI numbers and the wars are actually some of what we have to look at.
And when you think about it, Jermaine, the CBI numbers and the wars are kind of interconnected, because you saw what happened with us being able to issue passports, citizenship, to people from certain countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and one of those countries we actually have been at loggerheads with, and it's one of our major sources of revenue in terms of people who are looking to come forward and purchase the passports and so forth. But yes, Jamie, I've gotten the cue. It's news time. Yes. My producer's here. It's news time.
So thank you so much for having me.
Anytime, it's really good to have you join us to have this discussion. And we will invite you back again on the program. So thank you for joining us. And there you had it. That was Jamiela McPhee, our good friend from down Keon Street. From Freedom FM, yes. We were discussing the major issues and topics for 2023. It was a very, very busy year for all of us, especially us here in the media. Yeah, Sharon, for all of us here in the media. And I don't know, 2024 is going to be an even busier year with all of what we've been seeing locally, regionally, and internationally. But nevertheless, this is my cue. It's news time, so I have to hear the masterful newscast produced by Kevin Brown. So do join me around 12:30, 12:45, and we continue with Inside the News.
Is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM. We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9 Win FM.
People make the world go
You found the sound. 98.9 Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, and Carib Brewery.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
When it comes to the important things in life, your health, your education, your choice of a life partner, and of course your insurance provider, only the best will do. Caribbean Alliance Insurance is the only insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean with an A excellent rating. We have a robust 3-tier reinsurance strategy that protects our policyholders from multiple catastrophes, even if they occur in quick succession. We spread our risks over 18 territories, ensuring minimal impact to individual territories when a disaster strikes. We provide an excellent claims experience. Claim settlement is usually between 24 to 48 hours. Our A excellent rating means that you are more secure with us. Contact us for motor, property, marine, public liability, employer's liability, and other policies. Dalil Walwyn, people you can trust. Local agent for Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tomorrow secured.
With the WINNFM Midday News, I am Kevon Brown. Our top stories: multiple respiratory illnesses in circulation. COVID poses most threat to St. Kitts and Nevis tourism. Prime Minister Drew optimistic that public officials will comply with mandatory declaration requirements. Guyana's Jagdeo promises no new taxes for the country in 2024. A woman, the victim of a scam in Jamaica, sees her savings gone from 1.7 million Jamaican dollars to $636 in 2 days. Internationally, Britain boosts Ukraine funding, signs security pact. Now the details. The Ministry of Tourism in St. Kitts and Nevis has begun to put measures in place to prevent the tourism industry from shutting down again due to any COVID-19 outbreak. The Tourism Minister, Marcia Henderson, said that on the local front, the Ministry of Tourism is prepared for the impact of COVID-19.
We are already on the ball. We've prepared a policy. We are prepared in the industry, or preparing our stakeholders and partners who work with us in cruise tourism as to what the protocols will be, so that it doesn't have to cause, a shutdown of the industry. I know in the U.S. they recently declared a strain of COVID, and I suspect is the key word. I suspect that's what's happening. Passengers have been removed from 2 ships last week and provided care at our hospital.
However, while the new COVID strain JN.1 is a major concern to many people worldwide, including Kittitians and Innovisians, other respiratory illnesses have been in circulation. Over the recent weeks, scores of individuals have been falling ill, sparking assumptions as to whether it's the influenza, the respiratory syncytial virus, or the mosquito-borne disease dengue virus, which too can cause respiratory distress, among other things. Based on feedback from several individuals, the commonalities with some of the symptoms have made it difficult to determine which virus it might be, if any. On Wednesday, January 10th, 2024, The Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, issued an epidemiological update on respiratory viruses in the region of the Americas. The health organization confirmed, quote, in 2023, elevated levels of acute respiratory disease were recorded in the region, driven by the circulation of SARS-CoV-2, influenza, and respiratory syncytial virus. Currently, the Northern Hemisphere is experiencing epidemics of all three viruses expected in the winter, while some countries in the Southern Hemisphere are experiencing incidences higher than expected for the season due to the circulation of SARS-CoV-2, end quote. PAHO encouraged member states to maintain surveillance of respiratory viruses so as to detect any changes in the circulation or severity of the disease. PAHO also shared that countries should be prepared to respond to any increase in cases and hospitalizations. Dr. Terence Drew, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, believes that there is no act of nonchalance on the part of public officials who are yet to comply with the mandatory declaration requirements of the Integrity in Public Life Act.
I think that the process is ongoing. Remember, this is a new process for our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis as we seek to establish good governance laws. So I'm sure that each department, they're doing what they have to do. Each ministry, they're doing what they have to do. The persons involved, they're doing what they have to do to comply with the law. So I have no doubt that people would comply. But this is something new, and what I'm really proud about is that we have reached the point where we can actually have this done. So I think people being introduced to a new process, people would comply. I think these persons are serious persons, but as I've said, it's a new process, and it is something that I think people would have to adjust to, and so that I know would take place.
The Integrity in Public Life Commission handed over the names of the defaulters to the Director of Public Prosecution's office on Wednesday, January 10th, 2024. By way of information, public officials under the following categories are expected to comply with the declaration requirements enshrined in law: representatives in the National Assembly, representatives in the Nevis Island Assembly, members of the Constituency Boundaries Commission, Supervisor of Elections, Electoral Commissioners, Prime Minister, Leader of the Opposition, Director of Public Prosecutions, Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, Director of Audit, Public Service Commissioners, Ombudsman, Information Commissioner, Comptroller of Inland Revenue, Commissioner of Police, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Assistant Commissioner of Police, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, and more. Declarations should be filed by chairpersons, deputy chairpersons, managing directors, chief executive officers, and general managers of corporations established by the Act of Parliament for a public purpose or as a subsidiary company of that corporation registered under the Companies Act, including, but not limited to, Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Social Security Board, Financial Services Regulatory Commission, National Disaster Management Agency, National Housing Corporation, the Air and Seaports Authority in St. Kitts, the St. Christopher Tourism Authority, the St. Christopher and Nevis Solid Waste Management Corporation, the Nevis Solid Waste Management Authority, Nevis Air and Seaports Authority, Nevis Cultural Development Foundation, Nevis Electricity Company, Nevis Tourism Authority, the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation. Declarations should also be filed by chairpersons, deputy chairpersons, managing directors, chief executive officers, and general managers of a bank or corporation owned by the Government of St. Christopher and Nevis, or in which the Government of St. Christopher and Nevis has a controlling interest, including but not limited to the St. Kitts Nevis Angola National Bank Limited, the ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, Urban Development Corporation, St. Kitts Electricity Company, St. Kitts Nevis Cable Communications Limited, La Valley Greens Limited, and a commission, statutory board, public authority, or other body of any description, whether its members are paid or unpaid. To see the entire list of who should make declarations, visit WINNMediaSKN.com. In regional news, Guyana's Jagdeo promises no new taxes for the country in 2024. Guyana News Source reports.
Offering an insight into the upcoming 2024 national budget, Vice President Barrett Jagdeo has assured that no new taxes will be imposed on the people of Guyana as the government advances economic growth.
It has been a trend of the PPP governments, and we also, this is something we promise in our local government campaign, no new taxes, but I can say that even at the national level, that there will be no new taxes.
In last year's budget, the excise tax on petroleum products was reduced from 10% to zero, a measure the government at the time said would have resulted in tax revenue losses of $17 billion. It also took a decision to increase the income tax threshold from $75,000 to $85,000 monthly. And the government also increased the government's Because We Care cash grant from $25,000 to $35,000 for school children, and the old age pension from $28,000 to $33,000 monthly, while public assistance was adjusted upward from $14,000 to $16,000 per month. Brushing aside criticism by the leader of the opposition, Aubrey Norton, the vice president said Guyanese could expect a budget that focuses not only on the expansion of the economy, but also advancements into the social sector and even more infrastructural projects.
You're going to see economic infrastructure continuing, projects that will expand our productive capacity. You will see support for industries. You will see social infrastructure, that's community roads, health centers, the health facilities, education facilities, recreational facilities, large amounts being done in the communities themselves. You will see more help to vulnerable groups, significant support to children, women, elderly. There are specific initiatives that would tackle those in a major way that you will see.
Mr. Jagdeo said the government will also foster an environment that supports job creation and its expansion. Hours ahead of the vice president's press conference, the opposition leader at his own press conference predicted that the Monday budget will fall short in addressing the core issues affecting the people of Guyana.
While we expect the minister with responsibility for finance to label the budget the biggest ever, most ordinary Guyanese already know that it will not improve the living conditions of our people. As proof, we give you last year's budget of $900 billion, which, although 3 times the 2019 budget, has failed to live the lives of ordinary people. We expect the 2024 budget to be more of the same. Infrastructure over people, to enrich PPP elite family, friends, and favorites over the middle and lower classes. Again, we will be fed ad hoc projects rather than an integrated national development plan.
The opposition is pushing for a reduction in the value-added tax, a substantive increase in the income tax threshold, and an increase in the minimum wage by at least 50%, the removal of the personal income tax for low-wage earners, and the implementation of free university education, among other measures.
A woman, the victim of a scam in Jamaica, sees her savings gone from 1.7 million Jamaican dollars to $636 in 2 days. Television Jamaica has that story.
$1.7 million gone in 2 days. One woman was left with just over 600 Jamaican dollars after years of saving and accumulating almost $2 million in her account. Omarda Lyons has her story.
$1.7 million to $636, a discovery that left a woman in eastern Jamaica stunned, working for decades and saving money for a rainy day, only to see her bank account empty, left her in a mental storm.
It's rough, and the only reason why I am still sane and I am not getting too depressed is because I am a Christian. I've been praying about it, fasting and praying. My church brethren are encouraging me and praying. So that is the only thing that is keeping me, just my faith in God.
Now, a bank statement shows 4 different transfers from her account. 2 on October 12, 2023, $500,000, then $490,000. Then on October 13, $500,000 again, then $220,000. This she realized 2 days later after she went online to do a transaction, as she does from time to time. When she logged in, her balance left her unbalanced.
Immediately, I called customer care because when I opened the thing, I realized that a large sum of money was removed on the 12th and on the 13th. So I called customer care immediately. When I explained to them what was happening, the person said to me, the money from your account was transferred. If I made a transfer, I said, no, I didn't make any transfer. The money was transferred to another bank.
The money was transferred to someone she doesn't know, and the customer care agent told her it seemed as though she was a victim of a scam and subsequently closed the account. The woman then went to the Morant Bay branch to make a formal report. There, she spoke to the manager and was then directed to the police.
They asked me if I got any text message or email or anything, which I responded to, which I said, yes, I got an email sometime before.
It was this email, purportedly from the National Commercial Bank, NCB.
I clicked on the email, but then it didn't do anything. It was just like going around in circles, and I came off, and that was it. That was all that I did.
Romarda Lyons, TVJ News.
We now bring you these international reports.
Ukraine and Britain on Friday strengthened their ties, signing a security accord in Kiev. President Volodymyr Zelensky said it would remain until Ukraine joined NATO, describing it as an unprecedented security agreement. The agreement set out the support that London would continue to provide, including intelligence sharing, medical and military training, and defence industrial cooperation.
Prime Minister.
On his trip to Kiev, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak also increased Britain's financial support to £2.5 billion, an increase of £200 million on the 2 previous years.
This will include more air defence equipment, more anti-tank weapons, more long-range missiles, thousands of rounds more ammunition and artillery shells, training for thousands more Ukrainian servicemen and women, and £200 million to build thousands more drones, the single largest package of drones given to Ukraine by any nation.
With the Russian invasion of Ukraine approaching 2 years old, the visit comes at an important juncture. Political infighting in the US and European Union has held up 2 major packages of assistance which Ukraine heavily relies on.
And our opponents around the world believe that we have neither the patience nor resources for long wars. So waver now, and we embolden not just Putin, but his allies in North Korea, Iran, and elsewhere. That's why the United Kingdom and the free world will continue to stand with Ukraine as we have since the very beginning of this war.
Ukraine's ground forces commander Alexander Syrsky told Reuters on Friday Kiev needed more military aircraft for its war effort, such as US attack jets to support infantry and planes that could fire long-range cruise missiles.
There are active debates going on about what type of aircraft we need. I can tell you, we need modern aircraft that are capable of carrying and using the most modern weaponry. First of all, long-range guided missiles. That's first. Secondly, for me as a commander of ground forces, it is important to have aviation that would support infantry, ground troops. That is combat aircraft.
Zelensky told the press conference he felt vital US financial assistance would materialise and that he felt more positive now than last month.
The US has launched a new strike against the Houthis in Yemen. Military officials say they hit a radar site with missiles fired from the USS Carney based in the Red Sea. They've described the fresh strike as a follow-on action to their joint attacks yesterday, which authorities say are designed to degrade the Houthis' ability to attack maritime vessels. Earlier, President Biden had warned the US would respond if the Iran-backed group continued what he called outrageous behavior in attacking shipping in the Red Sea. On Friday, the US and UK hit around 30 sites across Yemen, including in the capital city of Sana'a. Houthi leaders said 5 people were killed and have warned of more retaliation. Our correspondent Graham Satchell has more.
before and after. Satellite images show the impact of the American and British bombing raids. The Americans say airfields and weapons storage depots were destroyed. The RAF didn't take part in the new attack overnight, but both the British and Americans say the raids are vital to keep shipping routes open in the Red Sea. Houthi militia have been targeting container ships off the Yemeni coast for weeks. Sometimes, like this, they've boarded vessels. In other attacks, they use drones and missiles. They say they're disrupting this key shipping route to show their support for Palestinians in Gaza. Yemen sits at a key strategic position in the Middle East, especially for global shipping. The normal route from the Far East goes round the coast of Yemen, through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. It has been significantly disrupted. Most vessels are now taking the longer route round southern Africa. It means delay and extra cost to global commerce. A huge rally in the Yemeni capital Sana'a. Protesters burn the Israeli and American flags. Millions in Yemen and across the Arab world are appalled by Israel's conduct of the war in Gaza, and they see the current airstrikes by the West as an escalation. A Houthi military spokesman said American and British criminal aggression would not go unanswered or unpunished. The Americans maintain airstrikes are a proportionate response, and they're talking down a wider conflict.
We absolutely do not want to see a extension of the conflict in Gaza broader into the region, and we'll continue to work hard on that. But at the same time, we can't allow the Houthis to continue to conduct these attacks, putting innocent mariners' lives at risk and affecting the global economy.
The Houthis are backed but not controlled by Iran. The clear worry now is that what's happening in Gaza and the Red Sea spreads and escalates to the wider region. Graham Satchell, BBC News.
Well, let's get some more background on who the Houthis are. They've been fighting a civil war against the Yemeni government since 2014. When the war in Gaza began last year, they declared their support for Hamas and said they would target any ship travelling to Israel. Our security correspondent, Frank Gardner, looks now at whether this military action will deter them.
Proudly independent, wary of outsiders, and also staunchly anti-Western and anti-Israel. The Houthis are a tough mountain tribe who seized power in Yemen 10 years ago. Today, the US-led airstrikes seem only to have emboldened them and their supporters.
We condemn the criminal terrorist strikes on the Yemeni people by Israel, America and Britain. We have been at war for 8 years. These strikes do not frighten us and do not worry a hair on our head. We will support our brothers in Palestine and Gaza, and we are with them.
The Houthis have already endured nearly 8 years of airstrikes, as Saudi Arabia, armed with Western weapons, sought to reverse their takeover and restore the legitimate government. It failed. The Houthis are in firm control of most of the populated parts of Yemen, including the capital Sana'a and, crucially, most of the Red Sea coast. And they're backed by Iran, which trains them, arms them, and provides them with intelligence, which it denies. This has enabled the Houthis to build up a powerful arsenal of drones and missiles. Now, the Houthis have effectively entered the Gaza war on the side of Hamas. They've demanded a ceasefire, and they say they're targeting any ship linked to Israel. But they've also attacked plenty of vessels that aren't.
The capabilities the Iranians have provided the Houthis have included cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and also the capability to manufacture homegrown UAVs, drones, which can be used as a cheap way to attack both shipping at sea and targets on the land.
Houthi patience may outlast America's and Britain's in this crisis. Their drones cost a fraction of what it costs to shoot them down. They vowed to keep attacking shipping and to exact revenge. Frank Gardner, BBC News.
U.S. prosecutors will seek the death penalty against the white supremacist who killed 10 black people at a Buffalo, New York grocery store in 2022. That's according to a court filing by the Justice Department on Friday. It marks the first time the Biden administration has initiated capital punishment proceedings. Peyton Gendron, who was 18 at the time of the May 14, 2022 mass shooting at a Tops Friendly Market store, was motivated by his, quote, animus toward black persons, according to the DOJ. In February, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, after pleading guilty to separate state charges of murder and domestic terrorism. In a statement on Friday, Gendron's court-appointed attorneys said they were, quote, deeply disappointed in the DOJ's decision to seek the death penalty. Gendron's defense lawyers had previously said he would consider pleading guilty to more than 24 federal charges, including hate crime and firearm offenses, if the death penalty was taken off the table. The case is the first under President Joe Biden in which the Justice Department has sought capital punishment in a new case. Biden campaigned against the death penalty during the 2020 presidential race. Federal prosecutors under U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland have sought the death penalty in 2 other cases, but the initial decisions were made during the Trump administration.
U.S. stocks closed barely changed on Friday for a second day in a row as mixed bank earnings offset better than expected inflation news. The Dow dipped 0.33%, while the S&P 500 and NASDAQ each ticked up marginally. Friday also brought news of U.S. and British forces launching airstrikes in Yemen in retaliation for Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. While markets have so far largely brushed off global conflicts, Joy Yang, head of product management and marketing at Market Vector Indexes, believes they're finally starting to weigh on stocks.
We're seeing a lot of geopolitical tensions on the rise, and we're waiting to see how this will escalate. I wouldn't discount what's going on in the Red Sea, in China, Taiwan, in the Middle East, in Russia, Ukraine. We're waiting to see how this will escalate in an election year also. So I think a lot of people are just holding back a little bit to get some more news and information.
Data Friday showed U.S. producer prices unexpectedly fell in December. That was in contrast to a report a day earlier that showed consumer prices in December rose slightly. In earnings news, shares of Bank of America fell 1% after its fourth quarter profit shrank as the lender took $3.7 billion in one-off charges, while Wells Fargo dropped more than 3% after warning of a 7 to 9% drop in net interest income in 2024. J.P. Morgan Chase edged about 0.75% lower after reporting its best ever annual profit and forecasting higher than expected interest income for 2024. But Citigroup rose 1% after reporting a $1.8 billion fourth quarter loss and saying it was planning another 20,000 job cuts as it looks to restructure the business. United Health dragged down the Dow, its shares dropping more than 3% after the company reported higher than expected medical costs. Delta Airlines tumbled 9% after the carrier scaled down its annual profit outlook. And Tesla lost more than 3.5% after trimming prices of some new China models and suspending most car production in its factory near Berlin due to supply chain problems caused by the Red Sea conflict.
You were listening to the Midday News on WINNFM 98.9. The headlines: multiple respiratory illnesses in circulation. COVID poses most threat to St. Kitts and Nevis tourism. Prime Minister Drew optimistic that public officials will comply with mandatory declaration requirements. Guyana's Jagdeo promises no new taxes for the country in 2024. A woman, the victim of a scam in Jamaica, sees her savings gone from 1.7 million Jamaican dollars to $636 in 2 days. Internationally, Britain boosts Ukraine funding, signs security pact. Thank you for listening.
That was the WINNFM Headline News. The Headline News was brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, and Carib Brewery.
When it comes to the important things in life, your health, your education, your choice of a life partner, and and of course your insurance provider. Only the best will do. Caribbean Alliance Insurance is the only insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean with an A excellent rating. We have a robust 3-tier reinsurance strategy that protects our policyholders from multiple catastrophes, even if they occur in quick succession. We spread our risks over 18 territories, ensuring minimal impact to individual territories when a disaster strikes. We provide an excellent claims experience. Claim settlement is usually between 24 to 48 hours. Our A excellent rating means that you are more secure with us. Contact us for motor, property, marine, public liability, employer's liability, and other policies. Delisle Walwyn, people you can trust. Local agent for Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tomorrow secured.
With over a century of perfection behind the Mackeson name, a smooth blend with perfect balance and richness. It's no wonder Mackeson Triple Stout has a legacy of perfection. Enjoy the world over. Introducing our new look with the same great taste. Mackeson. All hail the king.
Please drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
People make the world go round.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Buying your medication is easy with City Drugstore's curbside pickup. WhatsApp our certified pharmacist at 662-8769 with your requests. For prescriptions, take a clear photograph and send for review. We will engage you in dialogue and then provide a quotation and link for payment. You can then pay via TDC's online payment portal. And once the transaction is complete, you'll be notified that your pickup is ready. Yes, it's that easy. Send your WhatsApp message to 662-8769 to order your medications today with City Drugstore's curbside pickup service.
People make the world go
welcome back to Inside the News here on Win FM. I am German Abel sitting in today. Yes, and you heard a bit from us in the first half. Sorry about that. We were discussing some of the major issues that impacted St. Kitts and Nevis for 2023. Yes, we heard a lot. Crime, CBI, and so forth. And we were joined by a journalist who's no stranger to us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, Jamiela McPhee, and she was giving us an overview and some discussion surrounding some of those major issues. You can weigh in right now as I await my guests for the second half of the program. You can call in, share your thoughts, what you think were some of the big issues of focus for 2023. You heard us discuss some of them, right? There were a lot from a media perspective that were big stories for the year. But at the same time, you know, that was our perspective. So you can share your thoughts and so forth. And you know the numbers. The numbers are 4660989, 7620989, and for those 6620989, and for those overseas, US and Canada, 718-285-6984. Yes, so yes, tell me what were your biggest stories that you think impacted St. Kitts and Nevis for 2023, and what do you expect as we look forward to 2024 here in St. Kitts and Nevis? We are back. So my guest has actually arrived on Zoom. Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Piper.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I am well. So my guest is here. So for those listening, I'm joined by, is it the permanent secretary? I'm correct?
Actually, the CEO of the Cover Dominica Authority.
Okay.
So the
yes.
tourist board, yeah.
So I was mistaken there. So he's the CEO of this Cover Dominica, which is the tourism board there in Dominica. And for the better part of this hour, we're going to be discussing and getting his views from a tourism perspective in Dominica, as well as hearing from him surrounding the carnival that's about to, carnival in February, you know. So we're going to be discussing tourism and all of that in this for the better 30 minutes to 45 minutes there about once he's available. So we're just going to acknowledge our partners one more time, and then we're going to jump right into the discussions here on Win FM.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
TDC Financial Services. We're here for you to help you make your dreams come true. Whether your needs are big or small, we'll support you with them all. TDC Financial Services. We are strong. TDC Financial Services. This is where you belong.
TDC Financial Services, where money is made easy.
People make the world go
And we are back here on Inside the News here on WINFM 98.9. I'm Jeremy Abel sitting in again this week. It's our first program for the year. So, yes. So when I'm in the hot seat, we like to go beyond just the discussion of politics to just go inside the news to see how issues are impacting us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, in the region, and internationally. As I said before we took the break, we are joined by the CEO of Discover Dominica, which is a tourism authority in Dominica. So, Mr. Piper, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Pleasure to be on your program. I want to say good day to the fine folks of St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, beyond what you have there in St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica is always open for business. So we have a number of people from St. Kitts and Nevis coming down to visit us, not only at festival time, but we certainly extend our invitation whenever you're ready to come down.
We also have a large Dominican community here in St. Kitts and Nevis as well.
I know that, yes. And I hope they're spreading the word amongst their friends, their Kittitian friends. And I hope that they're representing us proudly in St. Kitts.
They are. So we're talking about tourism and Dominica. Let's start firstly. Carnival down there in Dominica next month. Give us a bit of how you guys are preparing for that.
Yeah. So just to step back a little bit, I mean, obviously my good friend Tommy is doing a great job in St. Kitts. And the wider landscape is to bring people into the destination, all year round. In Dominica, we have a number of pillars. We have about 7 pillars that we like to focus on. We have an aqua pillar. We have an agriculture or an agro pillar. We have a Kalinago pillar, and that is because we have the largest population of the last remaining indigenous people in the Caribbean here in Dominica. We have a romance pillar, and we also have a festivals and events pillar, which is where things like Carnival and the World Creole Music Festival would reside. So beyond trying to bring people down to the island for cultural heritage, of which Kalinago is a piece, and the fact that we changed hands between the British and the French 4 times, so we have that little Creole flavor. Besides all of that, we focus on our festivals. And when you look at the annual calendar, in order of chronology, we have 3 signature events, one being Carnival, which is held Monday and Tuesday before Ash Wednesday. Us, along with Trinidad and I think the French West Indies, Guadeloupe and Martinique are probably the remaining few in the Caribbean that still celebrate it at that point in time. Although we are having some discussions as to whether we can or should continue to do that and take Carnival beyond a cultural activity and more towards a tourism product. So that discussion is ongoing. Then in May 5th, we have the Jazz and Creole. And then, of course, in October, the last weekend in October this year, the 25th through the 27th, we have the World Creole Music Festival. And that is part of the larger celebration of our independence celebration. So just to paint the landscape, that is kind of where we are in terms of the things. But to get back to Carnival, we celebrate Carnival as Mass Dominique, the real Mass. And we say the real Mass because we go back to a number of traditions that were held, when the origins of Carnival began with our formerly enslaved forefathers, in terms of what they would do to celebrate and how they would celebrate. So we have a number of traditional elements, things like the sensei, which are costumes that are, could be made out of banana leaves, could be made out of old crocus bags, could be made out of whatever. Some of them are unicolor, some of them are multicolor, and there's always a mask that goes along with that. And those indigenous costumes are, you have different variations based on the villages that you come from. So every village in Dominica almost has a traditional costume in the way that they would celebrate Carnival. And so we are trying to keep that tradition alive, and we try to showcase that on the Monday of Carnival. Now, our Carnival opened on January 6th with the opening parade. And funnily enough, this morning, we had what is called our Juve, but it is celebrated predominantly with old mass costumes. So we brought in old mass groups from all different parts of the island. We brought them to one area in the country, and we gave them, a good 4 or 5 hours to just do their thing. And a number of residents from Dominica would have traveled to the village of Point Michel to take part in that old mass costume, which occurred today. So, yeah, in terms of Carnival, Mass Dominic, the real Mass, the major buckets would be the traditional elements. Of course, we also have the contemporary elements, which are what we call the pretty mass or the costume bands. So what you would see akin to, Trinidad, we have a number of groups. We have about five bands that will do that, and we celebrate that and showcase that on Tuesday, which would be Tuesday, February 13th. In addition to that, we also have pageantry. So just yesterday, we held the Miss OECS competition. I'm trying to get the results of that because I was busy doing something else. So I will try to give you those details, but we also have a number of, and St. Lucia won that competition. We also have a number of fetes. Well, just to finish up on the pageants, we have the Miss OECS yesterday. We have the Miss Dominica on February 8th, but we have the teenage pageant, the princess pageant. So pageantry is big for our, and then of course we've got all the fetes. A precursor to the road celebrations in Trinidad and St. Lucia and a number of other places are the fetes. And those are beginning to take shape and take hold in Dominica as well. So there's quite a few fetes for the week before February 12th and 13th, which are the official dates for the jump up. So that's kind of what we've got going on for Carnival as we speak.
Sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot to take in. I know we're joined by the representative from the festivals committee, I believe it is. But Mr. Piper, before I jump over to your colleague, I want to get from you, because we see and there's this thinking that Carnival is just a festival where people from across the region just travel. And as someone who works with the tourism authority, what sort of impact you have been seeing specifically in terms of the inflow and the influx of tourists when it comes to Carnival itself? And then I know you also spoke about other two pillars of the whole festival in terms of the jazz and the Creole festival. What sort of influx you've been seeing in regards to those?
Okay. So the whole year through, I would say, the 7 pillars, whether it's adventure or agro or aqua, there's 365 days. So you find people coming during those times to experience those sorts of things, romance, right? And we encourage that. And the reason we encourage that is because, if there's no big issue with flights coming in. There's no big issue with hotels being sold out, that sort of thing. So we definitely encourage those coming for romance to come whenever they feel like, and it's convenient for them. If they're coming for hiking, come whenever they feel like, and it's convenience for them. The issues we have with events and festivals is that they're at a particular time in the year. And you have an influx, a higher influx of people coming specifically for those events. So the difference being those events draw people in, whether they're Dominicans residing abroad or they are Caribbean carnival lovers or Caribbean festival lovers, or people from the French West Indies, which are a big part of the draw into Dominica. The issue is that there's a limited amount of time, right? The event is happening on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so everybody wants to come in on Friday afternoon, right? And there's only so many flights that you have, so you have that bottleneck, you have that issue that you need to deal with, and so that becomes a challenge, a logistical challenge in terms of how you deal with that. So not having unlimited access to the destination, nor unlimited hotel rooms at that particular point in time. Dominica has just over 1,000 rooms of all sorts, not counting Airbnb, right? And most people who come for festivals, if the festival is in Roseau or the carnival is in Roseau, want to stay around Roseau. So what you find is some of the rooms that are in other areas of the island don't necessarily get occupied, and so again that becomes both a challenge but an opportunity in terms of us trying to figure out a decent package for where to stay, but also how to get to the event. But yes, we do see at the time of the festival, and typically we take account for about somewhere between 7 to 9 days before the event. So if it ends on a Tuesday, we'll go 7 days before and look at the visitor arrivals. And we do see that at Carnival time and at World Creole Music Festival time, those periods are somewhere between about 15, somewhere around 15% of our annual visitor arrival. So it's nothing to sneeze at. And potentially it could be bigger if we could solve the access issues. But when you put on another flight and it comes full down before the event, it typically goes back empty. And so the cost associated with that additional flight or ferry, is can be a challenge in and of itself. But we continue to work doing two things. We continue to work on extending the window of activities so that people can come for a longer period. So instead of just wanting to come the Friday before a weekend event, you might want to come from the Monday or Tuesday because there would be activities, fringe activities that you would want to take advantage of. And we're doing that specifically because we know that people are able to work virtually. And so, it might be that actually people can come to Dominica for 2 weeks and still be working, but participating in some of the festivities. So we're trying to positively exploit that phenomenon that's happening now with remote work. We've got excellent Wi-Fi and capabilities here in Dominica, so that's something we want to encourage people. And by extending the window, you obviously you also get a more affordable price for the ticket because you're not dealing with so many people wanting to come on the Friday or the days right before. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do. So to answer your question, yes, Carnival and World Creole Music Festival in particular, we do see a high number of arrivals for the 7 to 10 days before those events. So we know that they are in fact a draw for visitor arrivals, and we want to get more people at that point in time. We also recognize that media follows entertainment. And so we try to accommodate our traditional media, like yourselves or journalists, as well as influencers, so that they can spread the news in terms of following the artist, but also showcasing the good time that is being had by all. And so we try to use the festival and events time as a time to get to the public and to introduce Dominica to potential travelers and to let them know that beyond entertainment, beyond festivals, that Dominica has a lot to offer. And so, even if festivals are not their thing, while they may hear about Dominica as a result of a festival or because XYZ artist is playing in Dominica, if they dig a little deeper, then and follow us on Facebook and our social media handles, they will realize that there's more to Dominica and they may want to come for adventure or they may want to come for romance. So that's another benefit to the festival, the events and entertainment pillar, and the festivals that we host.
Okay, I just want to jump across quickly to our colleague from the Festivals Commission. How do you guys balance, and Mr. Piper spoke about this, this festivals critical events are critical to the whole makeup of the tourism product and what's being sold overseas. How do you balance the fact that you have the traditional people who love the traditional events as against those people who are quote unquote the younger generation, who a lot of tourism officials would say are the target audience now, or the target market rather, for where the spend or the money spent is actually focused on? How do you guys begin to plan and create your calendar specifically about this as you prepare to head into another carnival?
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Good evening to listeners and viewers. My name is Ogeli Moses, and I am the Festivals and Events Assistant under the Dominica Festivals Committee and Discover Dominica Authority. So what we normally have is, we call it the project schedule that we have from point A to point B, that is prior to the peak time of Carnival, that we have line items to organize properly in terms of, when you said traditional and the young persons in terms of costume band. So what we do at the end of every festival or event, we have what we call, where we reach out to the carnival stakeholders and we get what worked well, recommendations, and if they had any issues at all. And we take that from the prior year and we put it in, make it play for the existing year. And what's been happening right now is that you find that in terms of the traditional mass, persons are, well, the younger folks, they tend not to travel towards it or take part in it. But what is happening is the diversity or the mixing of traditional elements on the costume bands itself. So right now we have 5 costume bands that Mr. Piper stated. We have Paul's Experience, Hysteria Mass, Amnesia Carnival, and Fantasy Mass. And what is happening in the details of the costumes, you see those traditional elements in terms of the look and feel of it. And just a couple hours ago, we had our Old Mass Juve in Port Michel, and the turnout in terms of the young folks was incredible. Last year, it was great. This year was just out of it. The young persons came out, because I'm a young person myself, and to see those Lapo Cabot beating, and then to see the senseis, the Black Devils, the Bois Bois, the Dame Lorrays, we call them, the ladies with the big butts. That was just great. And the engagement of the young people in Dominica, I must say that our tagline, our go-to, Dominica is the real mass, it's actually coming to fruition this year, full effect. And I feel that this year we're properly managing the crossover from traditional into the costume band very well in terms of the events. We have carnival stakeholders having elements of traditional elements are in their events, in terms of the decor, in terms of the entertainers, in terms of even the music as well.
And I would add to what Ogeli has said that when you start to plan the calendar for the year, we've spoken about the 7 pillars, And we know that each pillar would have their particular audience. So that we try to have some sort of either anchor. We thought we try to have a message that is anchored within each pillar so that it resonates directly to people who are adventure seekers or people who are romance or people who are aqua, divers, free divers, snorkelers, so we try to have that. We also try to have some sort of an anchor product, to which we can market to them, promote to them, so that they themselves can get excited about what it is that Dominica has to offer. And then, as Ogeli mentioned, specifically in the events and entertainment, we cater for the complete demographics from the young to the old. The old might resonate and align more with the traditional elements because when they were younger and played mass, that's what was around, and they want to keep that tradition going. They also want to teach the younger folks. The younger folks may be more into the contemporary. So we have a mix of traditional elements as well as contemporary elements. But in general, as it relates to the destination and trying to attract visitors to the destination, we're focused on the 7 pillars to let people know that when they come to Dominica, they can experience all aspects of those. And so by now you probably understand that a week is not enough time to spend in Dominica. You need to come back on more than one occasion, and if you're fortunate to live in the Caribbean and you have some time around public holidays and weekends and those sorts of things, you can do that. Yeah. So we are particularly focused on our audience, whether they are young people, whether they are from the Caribbean, whether they are from North America or the UK. Try to understand what it is that they align themselves with in terms of the product offerings of Dominica, showcase that. And in Carnival, make sure that people understand the diversity of the product offering. So we can go from there.
And on that same note, you mentioned the point, the diversity and all of that. We are now, because one of the things I admire about Dominica is you guys are holding on to the tradition and all the traditional stuff. And you mentioned that earlier, Mr. Piper, with regards to some of the traditional stuff in the bands and so forth, and you talk about the Juve today. How do you resonate that with the expectations, especially because we just came out of Carnival here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and we merged that with Christmas. But then the focus now is not the traditional, and this is also goes to Mr. Moses as well from the Festival Commission. How do you guys infuse that? Because there's this thinking now that the tradition is no longer incorporated, or the tradition is a dying art form of the carnival, of what you may have been accustomed to or I may have been accustomed to, but the younger people now are not really accustomed to that. They're accustomed to what they're being seeing throughout the world, what's now the standards. How do you guys maintain that while still getting those younger people and those overseas and those international tourists to come to experience that?
If I may, what we try to do is chronicle. So in film, in video, in images, first and foremost, we try to document the fact that that traditional carnival is still alive and kicking, so that we will be able to show people having a good time, either being a member of those bands or onlookers being amazed by what they see. So we try to showcase that and keep that relevant around the carnival time. The other thing that we have, which is not part of our organization, but is part of the Division of Culture, it would be their mandate to preserve a number of the traditional art forms in Dominica. So they would hold trainings along with private sector. They would hold trainings, and most recently, the Dr. Alwyn Bully Foundation just held a 2-week training course with some people from Martinique to look at the similarities and differences of traditional costume making and mask making. And so these are some of the things that we try to do, giving them their space, their own space in which to thrive, not to be clouded out or crowded out by others. So when you look at today was solely about traditional mass, old mass. And so when you give them that space and time, and you allow the younger folks to witness that, you will get some converts. And then the other thing that is happening is the fusion of elements of the traditional mass into the contemporary costumes, trying to merge and show that from whence we came, and show elements of the past and how that can be adorned in costumes of the present and future. So these are some of the ways that we try to do that, so that we keep the tradition relevant. And I will make I don't know whether the right word is an analogy, but at Independence Time in Dominica, there is no more patriotic time where you see people adorned in the national dress. We speak Creole patois for a day. The local food is showcased. And that is just a wonderful time for images, as well as a wonderful time and a very proud time for Dominica. I would say that when the traditional elements of Carnival are showcased, people get that feeling as well. It's also a very patriotic time. It's a different aspect of who and what we are, but because those traditional elements go so far back to who and what we are and from whence we came, they evoke those sort of feelings of pride, and you can see it in the folks that are in those costumes and the way in which they dance and move, and and the spectacle, and you can see it in terms of how the onlook is appreciated. And lastly, the other thing that we do is on Carnival Monday, there is a school bands parade. So there is an element to the school bands. And what we're doing is we try to indicate to them that there should be some element of traditional costumes, so that that art form of making the costumes, of wearing the costumes, of displaying the costumes is not lost on the youth. And so they now can continue the practice of traditional mass.
Okay. And that's something, and that jumped me to another question, which would be: is it that you guys are teaching the tradition? Well, I don't know how much it can be taught, but is that you've incorporated this whole dynamics of the tradition in the schools, in the classrooms, so you continue to educate the younger generation, the next generation, of what the tradition was, what our costumes were like, what Dominica was like back in those days, as they would say colloquially, in terms of ensuring that what we did in the 60s, 70s, 80s, that specifically will live on. Because when we look across the Caribbean and we talk about carnivals, it has slightly deviated from being traditional in terms of what we present, and we've been hearing a lot of criticism here in St. Kitts and Nevis, because most people, and again, it's commercialized, where more people are going for the modern costumes as against the historical and all of the traditional aspect of it. And we've been seeing that throughout the Caribbean. One of the things I admire about Dominica is you guys continue to hold on to a lot of the tradition, which again is not being seen across the Caribbean.
So two things I would say in that regard. One is we are having those very discussions as we speak amongst the publics in Dominica. It is more so about the date of Carnival, whether we can afford to have Carnival on the same days as Trinidad. Because let's face it, Trinidad is, is the number one carnival place in the Caribbean. And so to have a carnival on the same dates as Trinidad means that unless you forego carnival in your homeland, we're not going to get very many Trinidadians coming to Dominica to experience carnival. Nor are we going to have certain artists from Trinidad who can stay home and, benefit economically to come to Dominica and showcase their talents, and for us to advertise the artists that we may have at events in Dominica and bring more visitor arrivals in. So our issue is more about the date of Carnival, and secondly is more so about the economic activity that a change of date could bring. And so if we moved our date of Carnival from where it currently is, Monday, Tuesday before Ash Wednesday, to another date, economically, we think that there could be some benefit. And the saying is that it could become more of a tourism product to attract more people into the destination. And in so doing, there is a commensurate spend for visitors who come. And so the artists, in whichever form, whether it's the bands or costume makers, the vendors, the businesses, all the hotels, car rentals, all of whom would benefit more with more visitor arrivals coming in. I have not really heard the discussion focus on separating traditional with contemporary. And even if it is surfacing or it does surface, it is not that we will forego the traditional. It is that we will find a place, a space and time for the traditional and be able to focus on that even more so and almost have two elements of carnival, one being the traditional and one being the contemporary, whether that is at the same time or different times, or whether, so it could be as it is now, Monday, Tuesday before Ash Wednesday. It could be as it is now, but at a different time, or it could be at separate times. The other aspect, and you spoke about the historical part of it, is that the traditional mass is almost like a passage of rights, and it is, and the IP, the intellectual property, is really in the villages and in the elders of the villages. And so with Collie-Ho having the band Mauvais, or Grand Bay having the Sensei, or Good Hope having the Darkies, what you're likely to learn about just through stories and through what happens around carnival time in your village is that tradition of the Darkies would continue in Good Hope, and so we would expect Good Hope to continue to be the hope of the Darkies and the home of the Darkies because they have a history with that. And so that brings to for now another element of how we celebrate the traditional Mass. Today we had Old Mass in Point Michel. Later on today or this week, we have an opening in the second town of Dominica, or rather a village carnival, which would be in Portsmouth. We have village carnivals in St. Joseph and Marigot and Grand Bay and a couple others. And so there's a number of things that we can draw from. How we include the villages without negating the spectacle that needs to happen in the city, because most people come to the city for the spectacle that is carnival and the carnival parades. But you asked the question about traditional and how it is taught, and there's some complexity to how we deal with it, but the short answer is we do not intend to throw the traditional aspect of carnival by the wayside to solely embrace the contemporary. We are trying within the schools to show them how to make the costumes, which will complement the stories, that they're hearing from their elders in the villages, and to keep that alive. If need be, we'll find a space and time specifically for traditional, but that will be an aspect of Dominica's history and culture, and that will continue to remain for years to come and for people to enjoy.
Okay, Mr. Ugly, it is. I am bad with pronouncing names, so please correct me if I'm wrong and excuse me. Just give us a little bit of insight regarding Carnival. I know it's within a couple of weeks. And why should I decide to take some time off to come down to Dominica and enjoy Carnival as against flying down to Trinidad, which to an extent is the standard beer for the Caribbean?
Okay, so I will answer this question. You should actually come down to Dominica for Carnival. The fact of the matter is that Dominica Carnival will put on it is free in terms of when you go to Trinidad, you must be in a troupe to participate in mass. In Dominica, you don't have to be in a troupe to participate in mass. You could be on the sidelines and sit and enjoy the same music, the same good foods, the same good environment, and the warmth of our people. The events that we have in Dominica, it is the same level as Trinidad. Dominica is top tier. Dominica mass, the real mass, the traditional elements that we uphold and keep upholding for the entire years that we have it. Dominica Carnival is more of the quote unquote, it's not expensive, but it's reasonable in terms of pocketing. You can go to, basically, you can do 3-4 fets before the Monday and Tuesday parade, just under 900 US, and still take part in Juve, still take part in Monday and Tuesday. Dominica Carnival has elements where we have a Juve, whereas before the electronical bands come in, which is the traditional bands of Lapo Cabuit, and we have elements where our carnival starts from 4 a.m. Juve morning on Monday and go to 10 p.m. and it's the safest carnival in the region.
Okay, just before you go, in terms of partnerships, what's the partnership like, and what role does the private sector play in the hosting and staging of Carnival?
I can take a stab at that. Carnival is an expensive venture for the government, but it is also a event that can showcase the destination. And if not attract people in for Carnival, can certainly increase the awareness of the destination for future visits. Now, I mentioned Carnival in Dominica has a number of elements. There's pageantry, there's calypso or music competitions, there's fetes, and there's jump ups or parades, the opening parade, and then Carnival Monday and Tuesday. So the government is the main sponsor of the three elements of Carnival, the opening parade, Carnival Monday, Carnival Tuesday. We do have private sector participating along with us. But what you find is these are tough economic times, but private sectors are also picking the 1 or 2 or 3 events which they feel more resonate with their brand or is more in line with what they can afford. So you might find that, XYZ Telecoms is sponsoring the teenage pageant. So that allows the pageant to happen, right? And to happen, economically, and not have the government have to be the main sponsor of that event. So similarly, the private sector will sponsor, the Princess Show or the Junior Monarch. Private sector will sponsor elements of the Calypso show. we as government are the primary organizers of the Miss Dominica pageant and Sunrise, where we will have our own Asa Bantan as the headliner, along with Problem Child. We were able to pick him from Trinidad for that day, and there's going to be a number of other artists that on the stage, artists like Triple K and the Signal Band and others. But to get back to the private sector, what you find is private sector are dealing with elements of carnival. So some of the bands are sponsored by the private sector. They help to put the music trucks on the road and those sorts of things. But we certainly wish that we could get greater involvement for the national part of carnival. But we understand that it's a marketing activity as well to showcase aspects of Dominica's culture. But certainly we are pleased with the role that private sector is playing along with some of the organizers of these activities, which in and of themselves, in total, represent the calendar of events for Dominica's Carnival. So as I mentioned, it started January 6th. There were 3 events happening this weekend. Miss OECS happened, the Old Mass happened, and the Village Carnival of Portsmouth is happening. So, there is support that is needed for all of that to happen. And that's where the private sector steps up. And so every weekend, and as we get closer to February 12th and 13th, even during the week, there will be activities happening for Dominica's Carnival.
Okay, we're kind of running out of time, but Mr. Piper, I want to get quickly from you before I ask you for your closing remarks. We saw the expansion of WINNMedia, and you talk about some of the challenges. How impactful is this going to be for Dominica, 1? And 2, what are the challenges you've encountered, and because I know you've been pushing a lot of tourism and so forth, intra-regional travel has been having within the tourism sector?
Well, there's no doubt that intra-regional travel has been suffering for the last couple of years. I would probably say 3 to 4 years. Many people remember back to the day of Caribbean Star, when that was a competitor to Liat, and people could decide in the morning that they wanted to have dinner in Dominica or St. Lucia or whatever, and they could just go jump on a plane and go. I think there's more that can be done if the owners and the CEOs of the regional airlines sit at a table and figure out what is best for the customer, and also try to figure out what is best for the region. I think there's further collaboration that can happen. I see airlines wanting to replace Liat, and if every airline wants to replace Liat, then what's going to happen is just greater competition, whereas I think there could be more cooperation. That's my personal opinion on that. WINNMedia has been a great partner for us, and we are very pleased with the fact that they are able to not only service Dominica directly from St. Martin, but now via Antigua. And Antigua, once upon a time, was not only because there are a number of Dominicans residing there, but Antigua was a great source market for us, but also was a great hub, especially for people traveling to Dominica from the UK. And so with the addition of those flights now, we are hopeful that there will be a better connection, therefore more convenient, and hopefully more competitive in terms of pricing for travelers to Dominica. Yeah, and so we want to, again, reach out to our good folks at WINNMedia. Mr. Claudio Boncamper is my primary contact there. He's always very responsive and amenable to listening to what it is that we have to say, we know that he's sold out for Dominica's Carnival right now from the 7th of February. And so we're speaking to him about the possibility of added flights through St. Martin, not only for those residing there, but for others like, those in St. Kitts where you are, and within within those that can hear the sound of your voice, to come into Dominica for Carnival and beyond.
Okay, Mr. Ugly, can you give us a quick your final words as we wind down the program? I guess he's probably still not on. So, Mr. Piper, you have the last word as we wind down the program here.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate your time, and thank you very much for having us on. Thank you very much for continuing to showcase Dominica. While we spoke a lot about festivals and events, we do want to let people know that there's more to Dominica than that. I know the Caribbean people travel a lot for festivals and events, which is great, and we have our fair share in Dominica, so we welcome you at any time that you want to come down. But we've also got our rivers, our waterfalls. Believe it or not, we've got beaches as well. We've got hiking trails, and we've got the friendliest people in the Caribbean, not to mention good food, and safety. So these are all the things that we want to let people know about in terms of what to experience in Dominica. And we want to invite them to come not only for Carnival, not only for Jazz and Creole in May 5th, or for the World Creole Music Festival in October, but we want people to come to Dominica for that romantic weekend, for that special weekend, for any weekend that is a passage of rites where you want to do some hiking and if you want to be one with nature, those sorts of things. And I'm hoping that this year we'll be able to spread a little bit of Dominican culture on the stage at the St. Kitts Music Festival, and desperately trying to reach my good friend Mr. Alistair to discuss the possibilities of that, because we want to spread the love. But I certainly again want to thank you so much for affording us the opportunity to reach out to your audience, and I certainly hope that our conversation today would have encouraged one or two people to consider Dominica for their next vacation. Thank you.
I think you inspired more than just coming out to Dominica to visit for the Carnival. I believe one of the critical things that you that was mentioned there was the fact that the traditional aspect of Carnival remains alive, and that's one of the things I think that people have been calling for across the Caribbean, and knowing that Dominica specifically keeps both the contemporary and the old aspect of Carnival alive is critical in terms of the tradition and the whole history behind Carnival. And I think that has been key for me in terms of what you said there.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, there you had it. Those were representatives from Dominica giving you an overview and insight, and also extending the invitation for you to travel down there for the Carnival, which next month. Activities have already started down there. So if you don't have anything to do next month, just hop on across to Dominica and enjoy the Carnival activities over there. But we just have about a minute or so left. If you care to call in and share your views, you can do so. But we'll take a quick break, acknowledge our partners, and then we'll come right back and wrap the show.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Buying your medication is easy with City Drugstore's curbside pickup. WhatsApp our certified pharmacist at 662-8769 with your requests. For prescriptions, take a clear photograph and send for review. We will engage you in dialogue and then provide a quotation and link for payment. You can then pay via TDC's online payment portal. And once the transaction is complete, you'll be notified that your pickup is ready. Yes, it's that easy. Send your WhatsApp message to 662-8769 to order your medications today with City Drugstore's curbside pickup service.
People make the world go
round. And we are back here on Inside the News as we wrap our first program for the year. You know, we just decided to review much of 2023 and what were the big stories impacting St. Kitts and Nevis, both locally, regionally, and internationally. You know, our guest on the first half of the program, journalist Jamiela McPhee of Freedom FM, and we held our discussions. We shared the views and so forth. Since 2024 has started, and you know, the media in St. Kitts and Nevis and those across the country and internationally as well will be keeping a close watch in terms of what transpires here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Much of what has been discussed in the first half of the program will likely continue to impact us. The CBI program, the social programs, the crime situation, water and agriculture, all of those are critical issues that we continue to look at here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And yes, and the second half, we were joined by the CEO of Discover Dominica and a representative, Mr. Ugly Moses, Colin Piper, the CEO of Discover Dominica. And, you know, they were just sharing their insights. They were inviting people over to Dominica, but they were also sharing, you know, how Dominica celebrates Carnival. A lot of us have been complaining here in St. Kitts and Nevis about Carnival and what exactly that the tradition has actually gone out through the windows. And we hear that Dominica is actually holding on to their tradition over there when it comes to the whole Mass Dominique and what we have grown accustomed to in the past. The Juve also holds on to a bit of that, while they're also embracing the contemporary, which a lot of young people have been gravitating towards, and not necessarily the tradition. But they're also keeping it alive, the tradition alive in the schools with costume making and so forth. And that was most of what we discussed today. I'm German Abel sitting in today. Yes, that was me. And that was our program for today. It's another busy news cycle for the people upstairs in the newsroom. And I know they'll try to keep you abreast in terms of what transpires across St. Kitts and Nevis, across the region, and internationally. Well, Win FM continues. When this program is off, the programming continues throughout the day. It's a 24-hour station. And the news and sports will be coming up at 6 and 6:30. And that's the weekend. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm German Abel signing off. Do enjoy and stay safe, everyone. And ensure that you take your vitamin C, as we have seemingly a cold situation across St. Kitts and Nevis. So do stay safe, everyone. Protect yourselves and enjoy the weekend.